Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. It has been a little bit of time, but we are back as minicamp is over, and we are less than a month away until training camp kicks off in Philadelphia and around the National Football League. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, it's been a while. I know for you, it's hot as hell, and it is for me as well. Hopefully, this heat wave goes away. I've always been one to say, I will take cold over hot any day of the week. You can put as much clothing on as you want. You can warm yourself up. You can't walk around naked. That's all I'm going to say. I was dying today. The office, the AC went out. I was glad they allowed us to work from home for a little bit today. But, man, I hate the summertime. I hate the heat. Let's get to the fall and winter, and let's get back to football.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I love summer. I don't necessarily love, heat waves, but I can deal with, I'm in Canada, so I'm talking Celsius. So I'm talking 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Look that up online, do the conversion. But, at the end of the day, I'm okay with that. I prefer that over snow blowing and shoveling and the winter that we get up here in Canada. But
I prefer
alas, the closer we get, the sooner we get out of summer in the heat, the closer we get to football season. So as a bonus.
Exactly. It's not now, obviously being in Pennsylvania, 95 degrees Fahrenheit right now. God, it was in the triple digits for a lot of today. Hopefully tomorrow's not as hot. And then this weekend, it's supposed to rain the end of the week, get in the 70s by Friday. Hopefully, I'm all right with that. But, yeah, I can't take this anymore. But before we jump into our topics today, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. And then if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts on your position, the position battles you're looking forward to seeing in training camp. The Eagles don't really have many, but there are some. Any free agents that you would be interested in seeing? The Eagles poach. I did my early 53-man roster, and I already had to get rid of Jair Alexander because I thought that the Eagles were going to potentially go after him, but he ended up in Baltimore. So I had to add a different name to that. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Anything that you want us to discuss. We're going to try to get a couple of episodes over up until training camp before we have the real things that we can dive into. And any topics that you want us to discuss, we are all for it as we look to discuss stuff, get some guests on. But yeah, so Connor, let's start off with free agents. There's again this team.
One minute. I think we should start with that Bryce Huff reaction because we haven't been on the air since the Bryce Huff deal. So
I mean, my reaction, I guess, would be the fact that Howie was able to get anything for a guy that he was just going to cut. I guess that's good, and they got a pick that could become a fourth rounder, if I'm not mistaken, right? They got a fifth that could become a fourth. So like to be able to get that, and Huff Huff was productive in Saleh's system with the Jets, so he could potentially have, a season in which he gets 6, 7, 8 sacks. Who knows? But I mean, the Eagles don't face the Niners. He's not gonna bother the Eagles. It was a mismatch. I mean, it's crazy that the Eagles were able to win the Super Bowl, have as great of a season as they had, and Howie made one of his biggest blunders that he's made, when it comes to signing free agents and Bryce Huff.
Yeah, I mean, it may like I've been saying on X, it may have been one of the worst, free agent signings that he's done. I mean, if you list the top 5, top 3, that's probably going to stay in infamy as the top 3, top 5 worst. I mean, I honestly just thinking back in my memory of when Howie took control and the moves he's made, I think it might be the top 1. I don't think there's one that gets worse than that. I mean, he's made some draft blunders. If we're going to go draft blunders or we're going to talk free agent blunders, you got to separate them a bit. But if we even put them together, it's probably a top 3 worst move made by Howie since he became the whatever his title is, executive of football operations or whatever he's called now. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with you. It was either he was going to stay on the roster and we were going to end up holding him until the end of next season and cut him when it made more sense, or they were going to pick up that option that was coming up and they were going to figure out a different way to spread the money and they were going to deal him. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. We saved a little money this year. It costs us next year. But at the end of the day, we get out from under a contract that was not going to benefit us. And let's face it, when Vic Fangio puts a guy in the doghouse, they stay in the doghouse and they're not coming out of it. And you knew that if he ended up having to stay on this roster, that was one roster spot that we couldn't use. And I did a way too early 53-man roster projection too. And I know we're about to hit on some available free agents, but I mean, I could pick a 53-man roster with ease and still had 3 or 4 guys left over that I wish I could have on the roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens through training camp. And through the preseason and who ends up making the roster, who becomes like the Thomas Booker of this year, because Thomas Booker came out of nowhere last year. And now this year, I mean, he's got to show something big to end up making the roster, but it's going to be interesting to see who they cut, because I think there may be a couple of surprises that get cut that other teams will ultimately end up picking up. We say this every single year though, and then where we probably overrate some people, but I think that there's going to be a couple really surprise cuts that end up having to come out of all of this.
Oh yeah, there is, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are waiting to see who the Eagles get rid of, and then they'll pick them up on their roster. One more thing when it comes to Bryce Huff, they also could have held on to him through training camp. An injury happens, and then somebody, trades for him because they needed him. But look, the fact that Howie got what he got, can't blame it. I mean, the Eagles are going to have like 1,000 draft picks next year, so. I'm still shocked that the Eagles they made 10 draft picks this year and also signed like 7 or 8 undrafted free agents, and like they're bringing them on for a team that is pretty much as set as can be. I mean, they still brought a lot of young talent in, and it's crazy thinking about how the defense went from one of the oldest defenses in the NFL. They're going to be one of the youngest. Like, you don't have Brandon Graham, you don't have Darius Slay anymore. The old guy in the defense is Zach Bond. He's been here for 2 years. Like, just thinking about it, there's not many old guys on this team, on this defense. When you think about it, they're a young defense. Are they going to be the number 1 defense in the NFL like they were last year? Probably not. Like the schedule's tougher. You got to again. There'll be 3 or 4 new starters. There were a handful of new starters last year. Will Zach Bond have the same impact, the same season that he had as his first year with the Eagles? Potentially, when he finished second, I think, in NFL Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see who's going to start on as the second cornerback. Again, a bunch of questions that we're going to discuss, but let's start with the free agents. I think there are 3 positions probably that the Eagles could look to bring somebody in. Edge rusher, cornerback, and the third one, I'm indifferent on it. Third one can be a safety. I mean, they're still young, very young at the safety spot, probably light too. Maybe receiver. I'm not big on them bringing in a receiver because I think Jahan Dotson's going to be better this year. We saw what he did down the stretch last year. I don't anticipate A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith getting hurt and missing extended periods. That's the only way that they'd want to bring in a receiver if that were to happen. They're set on the offensive line. I don't know any other positions that kind of maybe inside backer, because with Nakobe Dean and Jahad Campbell, who knows when they're going to be ready to get going. It's Ball and then Trot. That's all I can really think of right now. I mean, Small London, who's a fresh, a rookie. Any other positions that you can think of?
I mean, no, and I really feel like wide receiver is more of, there's a lot more fans that feel like it's a need because they're worried about, A.J. Brown has missed time in the past. Devontae Smith has missed some time, but never, like you said, these extended periods of time that cost them large chunks of season. And I feel like that's where people are most worried about, is because the people behind them, it's like, Jahan Dotson, can he step up and be the number one or the number two wide receiver in a pinch? We don't really know, and a lot of people aren't buying into it because of last season and how he played. And then Terrace Marshall, it's like the typical Howie Roseman move. Failed second round pick. Good chance to, have a fresh start, new scenery, better offense. Maybe he can step up. Johnny Wilson and Aniyah Smith were, pretty underwhelming last year. There's just a lot of development that needs to happen with some of the guys. And, there's a lot of fans that just don't like to see that this need to wait and this need for a development of these players. They want to see players who can perform now, like, Tyler Boyd, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, some of the other guys who are out there who were out there that could step in and take the Jahan Dotson role and actually produce in it. But I agree with you. I think Jahan Dotson's going to step up and definitely do a lot better. And you can't continue to just throw draft picks at wide receivers and not take a chance and continue to try and see what you have in them and use them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them almost right now on my way too early 53-man roster prediction. I have them running it back with the same five guys. I don't even have Terrace Marshall making it, but training camp in the preseason can definitely show a lot and can change the opinions of people and can shift the feeling of, a need or the thoughts on a player very quickly, as we've seen in the past.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't remember. I'd have to look. If I have any surprises at the receiver position, but I don't think so. Pretty much the same as last year. When it comes to corner, I wanted Jair Alexander. He went for relatively cheap to the Ravens. Wanted to play with Lamar Jackson. I know different sides of the ball, but they went to college together. The name that I'm looking at is Asante Samuel Jr. His dad played here for a couple of years, 3 Pro Bowls. Now I know he's a little bagged up as an injury thing, but he could be somebody that could come in. And I know they have a Dory Jackson and Keely Ringo, but I think he can definitely battle with those guys to become the second corner behind Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, I hit it the same way as you. I mean, I was reading up a bit on Asante Samuel before the show. He had the neck surgery in April that cost him the majority of the season. And then the biggest thing was the report said that he's not looking to make a decision until he gets his mid-July check-in with his doctors. And then when he knows he can confidently sell himself or play next year, he's going to go out there and he's going to look for an opportunity. He's going to look for a team. And I agree with you. I see it as, you take a shot on a guy like Asante Samuel, 1-year deal, Isaiah Rodgers-esque type thing. Isaiah Rodgers was gambling, but, this is an injury thing. This is give this guy 1 year, give him a shot. I think he's better than Adoree Jackson. I think Howie needs to see an opportunity and needs to think that it's going to be better than Adoree Jackson for him to go out there and spend any type of money. Because the other names that I liked were, I'd be okay with maybe a Stephon Gilmore or a Kendall Fuller. If in just a veteran 1-year ring chase type of mentality. Those are the only guys that really stick out to me. That they want to give the young guys a shot. Keely Ringo is going to probably get a really long leash. Adoree Jackson's going to do battle with him just because they're not just going to give it to Keely Ringo. But I think it's essentially Keely Ringo's job to lose at the CB2 spot. But you can always stand to improve, and they value so much. They move pieces around so much that you could definitely end up making some of these pieces like Keely Ringo or Cooper DeJean more versatile and move them around, and things can change within the scheme. We've seen it with Vic Fangio. So, I mean, I see it as a ring chaser or take a shot on a guy like Asante Samuel. Isaiah Rodgers was a guy you took a huge shot on, and he's going to end up earning you a comp pick. He earned you a comp pick by having playing really well. He's somebody I wish we had have brought back. I think the contract he got was something we could have matched, but Howie really wants to give a shot to Keely Ringo. They see a lot of value in some of these young guys, and that's why I feel it's so so many people think that there's really valuable free agents out there that could bring even more value to the Eagles and some of the players they currently have on roster. I think that Howie really, really values the youth that he has, the 10 guys that he drafted. He did not draft 10 guys to only keep 2 or 3 of them. There's going to be about 7 or 8 of those guys at minimum that end up making this roster. So this is a youth movement. And if there's a ring chaser willing to come in super, super cheap, I mean, there's a chance that Howie will bring him in just as a thought to like, oh, he's better than Adoree Jackson, or he's better than somebody else on this roster that we can move on from.
Yeah, and he's always looking. He always does his due diligence, and he's always looking to improve the roster. They won the Super Bowl. He might think they have a little bit of a grace period, but let's try to be a dynasty. I'm not saying we're going to be a dynasty, but it doesn't hurt to go out there and try to be a dynasty. Another guy I'm thinking about in the secondary still is Justin Simmons. He has familiarity with Vic Fangio's system. We know that they have Reed Blankenship, and again, I'm not the biggest Reed fan, but kind of what we have right now. Sidney Brown is coming off of an injury, was slow off of injury. For some reason, Fangio likes Tristan McCollum. Don't understand why. They have Andre Sam. Cooper DeJean can play some safety in a pinch. So I still think that Simmons will eventually probably be signed by the Eagles, come into camp, closer to camp. Jack Straw, thanks for joining us, says, a vet on the defensive side of the ball who knows Vic Fangio. He knows Christian Parker. So I think that's somebody to keep an eye on. I thought that last year, but he ended up in Atlanta. So it wouldn't shock me if, come first, second week of training camp, he ends up in Philly.
Yeah, and I mean, Brandon Graham has spoke to that. It's been kind of alluded to that they've developed these guys. They're confident with these guys. They know that they're going to be the next generation. We just saw a wave of key Philly lifers that pretty much moved out with like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, but they all speak so much praise and confidence in who's behind them and who's coming up, and that the next generation is coming up. But at the end of the day, you definitely still want some veteran presence on defense. And I know we're probably going to hit on edge rusher here in a second too. That's one of the positions I think that they could bring a veteran defensive presence in who can definitely perform along this defense and give you a 5 to 10 sack season, where some of these younger guys might not be able to give it to you right away. But I know that, Lane Johnson spoke very highly of Joshua Uche, and kind of there's this belief that let's see what Uche can do, because the thing with the edge rushers in Philadelphia is I feel like there's more of a reliance on the interior of the defensive line to give you that push, and then you let the guys like Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith pin their ears back and go. And you're not necessarily getting that out of any of these guys in free agency, but I feel like it would pay to have a guy like Von Miller or Jadeveon Clowney or some type of veteran presence in there who is also going to perform and put up numbers, whether he's playing 40% of snaps or 80% of snaps. He's going to perform and they're going to put up numbers. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that regard, because I know Jalix Hunt, out of the reaction at a minicamp from a lot of the reporters, is that Jalix Hunt is having an incredible mandatory minicamp and like the spring portion of the season. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, he was one of those guys like Jahan Dotson, who also came on at the end of the season, had a massive Super Bowl performance. And then, of course, Nolan Smith. I mean, his development went from development to develop throughout all of last season, and he exploded onto the scene. So I think that the Eagles have a ton of faith there. I just feel like there's an opportunity to add a veteran piece just to that defensive line, mostly the edge room. But I agree with you. Like, a guy like going back to the safeties, I agree. I had Justin Simmons there. I like Julian Blackmon. I don't think they bring him in because I think that creates too much of a competition. And I think that there's, it's clearly Reed Blankenship. As much as me and you, he's a vein of our existence. We talk about how he just shot out of a cannon, and that doesn't necessarily always make tackles. He misses a lot of tackles, not always the world's best in coverage. He's not going anywhere. The Eagles love him, and I'm just waiting for the day that he gets his big contract extension that we're going to sit there and be like, did he he deserved it, but do we really need to pay this guy this money? Because it seems like every safety we bring in to replace someone is able to admirably step into the role and continue to do a really good job.
I don't know. We've been to the last two Super Bowls we've had CJ GJ, and
I know I know we talked about that move last episode, and I know I know that they love Sidney Brown, and I know that they obviously drafted Makuba.
The Eagles do. The Eagles do, but does Vic Fangio, because he played Tristan McCollum in front of him and whatnot. So I don't know if Fangio likes Sidney Brown as much as the Eagles do.
Dan South Philly Show says, I'm good with what we have on the D-line. I'm more concerned with the depth of our DB room. I mean, I tend to agree. I just think that they're more willing to give a leash to the DB room. If you know what I'm saying, like, they want Sidney Brown to win the job. They want Makuba to win the job. They want Ringo to win the job. They're giving a leash to these guys, whereas the defensive line, I feel like there's not a ton of depth. You look at the interior defensive line rotation, Jordan Davis is not a guy who's going to play more than 50% of snaps in a season. So you automatically have to know that you're rotating multiple guys in to cover that. How Moro Joma, I know he's like the big breakout guy that like Nolan Smith of 2025, but like, is the same production going to stand up if he has to play 80% of snaps or 70% of snaps, like a Milton Williams type load? Like, and then the edge rushers, we love Jalix Hunt, we love Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith just burst on the scene, and Jalix Hunt, I think, probably still has some more development to do. I just feel like they have more. I feel like I have more faith in the defensive back room and the faith in what the Eagles are doing in the cornerback and safety room than maybe the depth of the defensive line goes.
I mean, and the secondary is going to be thrown into the fire when you look at the schedule. You have Dallas, and as much as we hate Dallas, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, they got weapons on the outside. The Chiefs are always the Chiefs, and then I forget who week 3 is, but then like they also have Tampa, who they drafted Mbuka to go along with Godwin and Evans. So like they're going to be thrown in there. So I think you would want to get some vets in the secondary, and I'm not saying they have to be out there as starters, but guys that have played the game that can help the young guys that are going to be out there, and if need be, they can be thrown in the fire. Speaking of the defensive line, Jadeveon Clowney is an interesting one. I mean, I think in the past he said he would never play here, but obviously if you're going to get a check, you're going to get a check. And we know his history with Eagles fans spearing Carson Wentz in a playoff game, in a game that if Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt, the Eagles are going to win. I mean, they almost won the game with what the heck is the quarterback's name now? Oh, McCown. They almost won the game with McCown, and he ended up hurting his hamstring or something like that. So, that would be an interesting take. Zadarius Smith, or maybe it's Howie's lurking, because Trey Hendrickson, T.J. Watt, there are guys out there that are looking for contracts that haven't gotten them yet, and they're probably going to eventually get them. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but who knows if Howie's just not lurking and the price comes down a little bit and he tosses a couple, again, 10, 12 draft picks next year, tosses some draft picks over the next couple of years to the Steelers or the Bengals and gets his edge rusher. And then we're going to have a totally different discussion about the look of this defense. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but You can never,
Yeah,
you can never, you can never not say, oh, Howie's not going to do anything. Howie's always lurking.
You know he's lurking on the Hendrickson situation. I don't know if Hendrickson and the Bengals are in a mess. They drafted Hendrickson's replacement and Stewart, who won't sign his rookie contract because of language issues and in the contract. And then you got Trey Hendrickson, who's literally telling it like it is, saying that they're not, negotiating in good faith and stuff. And I mean, at the end of the day, Howie's not a market resetter. Howie's kind of he is a market resetter, but on the lower end. I just don't see he extends his own guys at new market rates that end up creating these massive markets as we've seen. And I just don't necessarily believe that he wants to be the one to reset the market with that Trey Hendrickson or a TJ Watt at $35 million a year or whatever that might cost. But that's not to say that he, if the right opportunity comes up and if the opportunity presents itself, you'd be crazy not to do it. And the guy you have the most faith, one of the managers you probably have the top 3 most faith in the NFL to get something done with one of those two guys is going to be Howie Roseman. I think Pittsburgh gets it done with Watt, but I think Hendrickson's an interesting case. I think Hendrickson and Stewart have spoken out so much that I can see Hendrickson.
The Bengals are so dysfunctional. The Bengals are such a dysfunctional organization.
I know they just don't want to write the check up front, despite how much they're worth. They don't want to put the money up front and the faith in their management to make the decisions. It's unfortunate.
Which is why I think the NFL is going after that. Obviously, Jeffrey Lurie is willing to put out that money up front, and a lot of teams aren't, and that's how the Eagles can kind of fluctuate or can fudge with the salary cap a little bit with the dumb years and whatnot. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm always, Howie is always keeping an eye out, because if he can make a move, he's going to make a move. I'm still down south Philly says he's the opposite. He has more faith in the D-line rotation. I'm okay with our guys stepping up, but who plays the Rodgers role when Keely needs a blow, or if Makuba or Sidney are out for a game or two? I mean, we could say the same thing for the D-line. I mean, we lost Milton Williams. Now, I don't know if it was Milton Williams worth all the money he got against playing next to Jalen Carter, sure, but he's not going to be playing against or next to Jalen Carter, and he's going to be playing in a different system in New England. So there's a chance that he's not going to look like the guy that the Patriots thought that they were signing. Josh Sweat, I was like, did I want us to re-sign Josh Sweat? No, but you're gonna have to. If Hunt is replacing him, then who's gonna replace Hunt? If Ajomo is replacing Williams, who's gonna replace Ajomo? You can talk about that all over the defense. So that's why I want some second Asante Samuel, Justin Simmons. I wouldn't mind having them guys as depth pieces, but if we can get some depth pieces along the defensive line, Ty Robinson, I think is going to be really good. So I'm not as concerned about the defensive tackle rotation, but when it comes to the edge rushers, we know that that Nolan Smith can get after the quarterback, but he's also has an injury too that he's going to be coming from. Jalix Hunt is still, like you mentioned, still working on it. Has only played defensive end for a couple of years after being a safety. So we know he has the speed, but can he play against the run? We knew Brandon Graham was great against the run. Josh Sweat was good against the run. And these guys play good against the run, or teams are just going to run away from Jalen Carter. Is Moro Ajomo going to be able to beat his man one-on-one when Jalen Carter's taking double teams 98% of the game? We knew Milton Williams could. Can Ajomo do that? That's where all these questions come into play. We think that they can do it, but we need to see it. And are we going to see it? Obviously, we'll have to see it in game reps when preseason starts, when camp starts. And if they're able to, great. But I never doubt Howie when it comes to potentially improving the team. If he can improve it, whether it's by making a trade, whether it's by signing a free agent, he's going to do it as long as it fits under his structure, his salary cap structure. He's not going to go out there and like you said, potentially set the market with something. I mean, he did with the running back position. Jalen's going to probably get a contract after this year. Jalen Hurts is probably going to get a restructured contract or get an extension. Jalen Carter's going to get an extension. So that's why when we talk about, or when I mentioned, TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson, I'm a little iffy on that because they're going to have to be paying big money to, Carter and Hurts and who else? Who knows who else that's going to be up for extensions. Jordan Davis, I think will get an extension. It won't be as big, obviously, as big as Jalen Carter, but I do think that they're going to re-sign him and keep him here for a couple more years. So that's where all the intrigue comes when it comes to Howie Roseman making the moves. And also, by the way, he just turned 50. He has been with the Eagles organization like half his life. It's crazy that he is 50 years old now.
Yeah, man. I mean, look at all the great, look at the tree that he's created, the executive tree. We talk about coaching trees. Look at the executive tree that continues to branch off. And they just brought in the young guy from Joe Douglas
LSU.
back, and then the LSU guy who's super highly praised. He just reloads the room so simply and so easily. But it all starts with Howie Roseman, and then it comes and then it trickles down from there. But I agree with you. I just from a free agent perspective, and is Howie actually going to make a move? It's not going to. I don't foresee, barring someone getting injured during some sort of off-season workout, I don't think he makes a move before training camp. I think he's going to see what starts to transpire in training camp, what he starts to see with the roster, unless the right opportunity really, truly presents itself that you just cannot say no to. Are there people you can cut from the current 90-man roster to make room for some of the guys we've talked about this episode? Absolutely. But the guys that we've been talking about in this episode are not the guys who are coming to Philadelphia to potentially be cut. They want some job security. They want a ring chase. They want to be on this 53-man roster. So then you have to look at it is, can you fit these guys in the 53-man roster when we cut from 90 to 53? And if so, who's being cut from that 53-man roster? And I feel like Howie is really, really, they love the youth. Howie, Vic Fangio, Pachula, they love the youth that they have, the youth movement that they've been running with, and that's actually been working as people retire. It's just next guy in line, and the next guy in line does an incredible job of stepping in. It's like when you look at Fletcher Cox going, Jalen Carter stepped in a big way, like we knew he would, but he stepped in an even a bigger way than we thought. Milton Williams is out. The hype train is rolling for Moro Ojomo now. Brandon Graham is gone. Nolan Smith right into the pipeline. The pipeline of youth that they have is amazing. It's just, I worry that Howie has done so well with the youth that now he's going to the opposite of the 2018 where he kept a lot of the older guys and pulled them into the next season and things didn't work out. Then now he's completely abandoning a veteran presence in the older roster for the youth movement that they have and the confidence that they have in the youth that's on roster, which might not necessarily be a bad thing. It could turn out to be really good. It can also turn out to have its bumps in the road because some of these guys are not NFL ready and require that development to get to the NFL ready standpoint. But I do have a ton of faith in the players in the locker room. We haven't gotten to know their personalities necessarily as much. Like Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham or the guys who were there for 10 plus years who you got to know and you kind of thought of them as your brother because you heard them talk to the media so much. We don't know that about some of the guys that are coming up, but I have more than enough confidence in some of these guys. They've been kind of silent leading in because they knew their lane. But now I feel like come training camp and stuff, especially Hard Knocks too, you're probably going to start to see some of these guys and new leaders come out of their shell.
Yeah. It's been such a long, ever since the end of the Super Bowl, I'm not a big NBA fan. I hate the Sixers. Everybody knows that. I don't really care about the draft this week. So I'm glad the Flyers sucked. So that wasn't fun to watch. The Phillies just get me to October, but if the Phillies can kind of keep it interesting until the Eagles start, then I'm happy. But just give me the football. I need it back. I can't wait for it to come back. It's going to be fun to see how this team rounds out, to see how the roster rounds out, to see the work that they put in. Winning your first Super Bowl can maybe guys can rest on their laurels and be like, we won a Super Bowl. We can just show up and do it again. Obviously, you can't. A.J. Brown putting in work. Saquon Barkley, while he's making the rounds, he's also putting in work. Cooper DeJean, while he's making the rounds, also putting in work. Jalen Hurts, we know he always puts in work. So I'm intrigued, and I can't wait to see, excuse me, how they come out. And obviously, if they can stay healthy, maybe they can break that streak of NFC East teams not winning the division back to back.
I agree. And just to touch on a couple more of these comments, down South Philly would love a Simmons or Stephon Gilmore as depth pieces. I you know what? There's a world where I can see at some point in this offseason, maybe an injury occurs. Maybe, you know, they're not as happy as they thought with Sidney Brown. He needs another year, or they're not ready. Brown and Makuba, the competition's going well, but they don't necessarily see them as starters. I can see a world where, or Dory Jackson doesn't perform to par, maybe either. You need something behind Keely Ringo and Quinion Mitchell. Like, I can see a world where one vet move is made this offseason. I can still see a world where it's going to happen. Multiple, unlikely. And one, I can see it. If you were to tell me where to put my money on the move, I definitely feel like Simmons just feels like the move. I know they love Tristan McCollum, but he's more of a special teamer. I know they love Makuba, and I know they love Sidney Brown. But, I mean, you can't turn down the opportunity to have a guy who's done a lot of work with, like you said, Parker and Fangio, knows the system, would come in and be comfortable in this system for the most part right away. Like, that's where I would put my money. It just feels like the safe move. Simmons is basically begging to come to Philadelphia on podcasts. Like, it just feels like the move if there was going to be a move to be made.
And also, when he signed, the Eagles apparently were like right behind the Saints for Justin Reed. And Justin Reed said they just couldn't make the money work at the time, or else the Eagles would have Justin Reed right now, and we wouldn't be talking about the safety position. So I do think that if they can bring in a vet at the safety position, they will. And again, somebody that knows the Vic Fangio, Christian Parker, and knows the scheme. So like he wouldn't need to be brought up, or he wouldn't need to learn on the fly when it comes to the defense. Obviously, new wrinkles here and there. But other than that, he knows what the expectations are of of Fangio and Parker.
And then one more comment here. He says, "I'm excited about Ty Robinson. Gives me J.J. Watt vibes." I won't go to the level of ever saying either Watt name, but I will say that there's something about Nebraska Cornhuskers that make for guys with a relentless motor that have such a underrated football game. And I think Ty Robinson, definitely, I love Ty Robinson. I think Ty Robinson, like we talked about earlier, that a rotation with Jordan Davis or a rotation with Moro Jomo, I think you can work with that 4-man rotation of Ty Robinson, Moro Jomo, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis. And I think it can be a very effective defensive line. But I had Ty Robinson. I was mock drafting Ty Robinson to the Eagles a month, 2 months before the draft even happened. There's something about like his whole athletic build, and when you look at the tape, he's just relentless. He always screamed Philadelphia Eagle to me. I'm like, Philadelphia Eagles. I wrote an article about it a while back in my mock draft article, and I said Ty Robinson screams Philadelphia mentality and the type of player Philadelphia Eagles fans are absolutely going to love. And I'm hyped that they got Ty Robinson. Won't go to the Watt level yet, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, putting him next to Jalen Carter, it could be a lot of fun if he lives up to the quote unquote hype.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Let's see. Yoss228 says, I'd bet on a trade for an up-and-coming defensive lineman over any of the older vets or big names. I'm trying to think off the top of my head quickly who that could be.
I was going to say that's tough because if they're an up-and-coming defensive lineman, the team likely isn't going to want to move them yet. So it makes it difficult. It would have to be like,
somebody that's coming at the end of their rookie contract.
That might be having some internal issues like Trey Hendrickson and getting another contract. Like
Micah Parsons. No, kidding.
Well, I'm
kidding. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But I agree with that one. Like that's one of the ones they just got to get it done. I mean, we hate the Cowboys. I love seeing that. So I ain't going to lie about that. But
3 players are going to take up 90% of their salary cap.
But and it's not in the Howie Roseman DNA to buy an up-and-comer. He likes to give second chances to guys who have failed in other places like Terrace Marshall, Jahan Dotson. Isaiah Rodgers with his gambling issue, no one really wanted to give him a shot, and we gave him a shot. Like that's the Howie Roseman mentality. It's not to buy the guy that's going to cost you massively after 1 year on their next contract. It just isn't in the Howie Roseman DNA.
The one thing I will say, though, Howie does use – the last couple of years he's made a move going into camp to bring somebody in. CJGJ back in 22 when they made that trade with the Saints, nobody expected that to happen, and boom, CJGJ was an Eagle. Jahan Dotson last year. So Howie works under the radar. And, it wouldn't shock me. We get to that first week of training camp and the Eagles make a move. I'm not saying it's going to be for a big name, but he makes a move for a position of need, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's a corner, whether it's a safety. I wouldn't be shocked in the least bit if that happened. And we're coming on the next day and talking about the newest Eagle that can help. The defensive side of the football. Help the young guys. Help. Replace the Brandon Graham production, the Milton Williams production, the Darius Slay production, CJGJ production, Isaiah It would not shock me if that happened at all.
Yeah, I know CJGJ, when that trade happened, there was the beginning murmurs of unhappiness, and a new contract, and that the Saints weren't going to be able to meet it and stuff. But at this point, things are kind of quiet, but come training camp, when you start having guys not show up, like you saw mandatory minicamp, guys didn't show up. But the true telltale, that's just mandatory minicamp. You pay your $100,000, you move on, or whatever the fine is. When you start getting to training camp and guys start racking up the fines and aren't showing up to those things, that's when maybe Howie Roseman might strike, because he's like, hey, I think we could improve at this position. I might want to make a move on this guy. That I could possibly see. Again, I don't think I see anything happening before training camp. They got their eyes set on some of these young guys and some of these battles that are going to take place. I don't think that's going to happen without, the murmurs of some disgruntled players maybe starting, how he hears them, how he makes a move. There's no way how he makes, 12, 13 draft picks next year. We know there's some things up his sleeve, and there's going to be some moves made. And we know there's some huge contracts coming up, like you said, there's Nakobe Dean. Are you going to pay another linebacker? It was outside of Howie Roseman's DNA to pay a linebacker anyways, and then he drops $17 million a year on Zach Bond. It's going to be really interesting. Jalen Carter, big money. Jalen Hurts, while he's not owed anything over the next 2 or 3 years, neither was Saquon Barkley. If Jalen Hurts continues to perform to the level again this year that he performed to last year, brings him to the playoffs. Maybe
Jalen Hurts isn't even remember when he got his contract, he was the top. He's like not even top 10 anymore. It's ridiculous how.
No, it's completely dropped up. But like the people who got paid above him, don't. Trevor Lawrence is not worth more than Jalen Hurts. You're not going to convince me. No. So like he's owed and he knows he's due, and Howie knows that he wants to have that discussion before it becomes.
Well, it is interesting though, because if
richer one.
His agent, if you remember, or I don't know if you saw the thing like a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when this was made, but it came out like when she was working on Jalen's new contract, and he said he wasn't looking to be the highest paid player. He wanted to make sure there was still enough to feed everybody else on the team to keep the team together. And then like he wouldn't sign it. He didn't want to know anything about the contract. But then once it got final and she brought it to him, and she goes, "Yeah, you're the highest paid player." And he's like, "What? Why? Like it's not what I asked for." But he just wants to make sure that everybody else around him, he can keep the team together. He wants to do quote unquote the Tom Brady thing. If you take more team friendly deals, and you can keep the great offensive line together, the great weapons on the outside, the great offense together, and it can help keep the defense together. Like keep the players, the impactful players on defense. Jalen deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, no, he definitely does. And the thing is, he was the highest paid player at the time because they got out ahead of Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. And also being the highest paid player from a Philadelphia Eagle, Howie Roseman standpoint, doesn't mean you're the highest paid player in the same vein as how other players see it when they become the highest paid player. And I think that that's important, that he became the highest paid player, but the way that Howie does his contract, I want to use the word rigs because it feels like he rigs the contracts, and that feels like the right word for it, but it sounds so diabolical.
If Goodell has his way, he's going to do away with that, unfortunately.
And well, Goodell's been making his best effort to ban the tush push, and it's not working. So I feel like, eventually, unless you make the salary cap like the NHL, where it's literally you're paid what you get annually, that like there's no other way that you can really kind of get around it. And the NFL players will never agree to it. It just isn't going to happen, because at the end of the day, you get your fully guaranteed contract, but it's going to be less money. And that the owners are going to say, well, I'm going to pay less money. I want to pay less money. I'm not going to pay fully guaranteed like that. So I feel like Rodgers got yet another uphill battle to go to combat the Philadelphia Eagles and their way of, I don't even think it's like bad what they're doing to the system. Like when the tush push ban talk was in effect, everyone literally pulled the numbers for QB sneaks, and they were more effective as QB sneakers. Yep. So Howie's just going to find another way to play with the system. It's in the nature. But Howie's going to have
if it would have gotten banned, they could use Ty Robinson. What was he, like 8 of 9 when he was at Wisconsin or something like that? AJ Dillon, the guy Harrison Bryant, who they brought in at tight end. Like, I think the Eagles were preparing for it, but they don't have to worry about it for at least for this year.
Yeah, sorry, we jumped into, Goodell conspiracy theories, but anything else you want to hit on before we wrap this up?
Nothing I can think of. I know as we head into training camp over the next couple of weeks, we have our 53-man projection, our very early season prediction going through the 17-game schedule. I actually already have mine done, I think, so I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on yours for the Eagles, and then that's something we'll obviously do probably towards the end of preseason as the rosters become more rounded out and we know who's actually going to be on each team. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, you have anything?
No. I mean, it's the dead of the off season at this point, and it's probably the worst part because, it feels like it used to feel so long between the Super Bowl and the draft, even the combines and these Senior Bowls and bowl games, and now it just feels like it's Super Bowl 2 weeks off, combine, Senior Bowl, these bowl.
It's also like the Eagles didn't really play up until the Super Bowl. Now they're like one of the premier teams and they're playing late. So it seems like the offseason's truncated now because you get the Super Bowl and then boom, you go right into the combine. And like you mentioned, all the all-star games for colleges and free agency, it all hits one-on-one. Now we're in this dead zone. And as I always say, no news is good news. If no players are out there doing stupid crap and they're not headline, their names aren't headlines in the news, I'm fine with that. I'd much rather not hear anything from the Eagles up until they're reporting to Lehigh, or not Lehigh. I wish it was Lehigh because I would go. Reporting to the NovaCare for camp.
I mean, I know like that no news is good news, and the only news over the last couple of days has been Kendall Lamb's comments about, and we already knew the culture of Miami was trash. But I mean, what he said about what they do in Philadelphia, like even more insight, like at the end of a day, they talk about like what's going on with themselves, personal lives and mentally and stuff like that. It's such a amazing culture that Nick Sirianni, I don't care because, you know, this culture is definitely driven a lot by Nick Sirianni. I don't care. Like, we were critical of Nick Sirianni at this, you know, earlier on in this season, and we've been critical of Nick Sirianni. But one thing we've always said about Nick Sirianni is he's an amazing culture builder, and he's a player first type of guy. Mm-hmm. And it continues to show every time someone makes a comment, you learn more about what they do behind the scenes. And it's like, wow, like this guy is like, this is the type of manager you want in your workplace. Exactly. So, I mean, that was the only other comment call out. The Kendall Lamb thing was like, I was like, wow, like every time someone says something about the culture in Philly, it just makes me sit there and be like, damn, like.
It's also why like players like to stay, even if they go elsewhere, they want to come back here, whether it's just to be in the area, whether it's to be around the team, whether, even after retirement, or whether it's to try to work in the front office or something. Like, they want to be in this area. So like
we have, at the end of the day, we have absolutely ravenous fans who will rip your head off if you mess up. But at the end of the day, the culture is great, and you wear that green, and those same fans, if you put all your heart and soul into it, they will step in front of you and go to war for you. So
1,000%. Well, felt good to talk a little bit of football. I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks as we head into training camp. I can't wait so we can start talking about practices and battles, and if the Eagles are to bring in any other players and how that could affect our 53-man rosters. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGHurrell54. And follow the Eagles Pin Pool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pin Pool Network. We appreciate all the comments in the comment section. We'll be back next week. We'll surprise you with something. I mean, it's going to be one of two things, probably. Our schedule, talk schedule a little bit, or our very, very early 53-man roster. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.